afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. Welcome to our very first session for Nordic's Work Wednesday, Going for Gold with Open Enrollment, which is being presented today by Kevin Kale. My name is Molly Velasco, and I'll be helping moderate the session today. Please be aware that the session is being recorded. Quick logistical information before we get started. Please use the chat feature to ask any questions throughout the presentation, and we will be sure to address them. There will be a Q&A session at the end where you can come off mute and ask questions, but please, during the presentation, use the chat feature for those questions. I do highly encourage you to take advantage of the time with our consultants today and ask questions and interact. Copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be sent to all registrants. If you're not a registrant and you would like a copy, please send me an email and I will include you on that distribution, and I will drop my email in the chat so that you have it. So prior to getting started, I also need to just present a quick disclaimer. So the material in this presentation is in reference to deploying the Workday platform and is for informational purposes only. We just want to provide you with considerations as you make the best decision for your organization. Reliance on the information presented without consultation is at your own risk. We highly recommend that you contact Nordic to discuss how solutions can be tailored specifically to your needs. And with that, I will turn it over to Bob Posier, who will give a brief highlight of Nordic ERP services, and then we can jump into today's presentation.
Thank you, Molly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Make sure my mic's on. Great, thanks. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining here. Just wanted to give everyone a quick orientation as to Nordic's ERP services. And really our approach is to meet our customers and prospects where they are in their ERP journey. So whether you're considering a move to a new platform or expanding your current platform, we can provide strategy and planning. We can do readiness assessments from both a technical and organizational perspective, assist with selections, evaluations, traditional implementation work, and then ongoing support and optimization. So a lot of folks spend, the better part of a year going live on an ERP platform, such as Workday, and then when they go live, they realize there's a lot of things that didn't make the cut to go live, and they need to add those to increase the overall return on investment, increase user adoption, things like that. So really kind of the full gamut of services from an ERP perspective, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Kevin Cole. I'm a practice manager in the Nordic ERP team. I've been in the HCM ERP consulting space for over 25 years. I maintain Workday certifications in core HCM, benefits, absence, and learning. And just a little personal tidbit that I'm an enormous soccer fan. If I had my camera on, you'd see a bunch of soccer paraphernalia behind me, and enjoy watching my kids and professionals play on the weekends. And we have another presenter, and let him introduce himself real fast.
Yep, so I'm Kevin Branford. I'm a practice leader with our Nordic team. So I have over 25 years of ERP consulting, certified on the Workday integration side. I also enjoy outdoor activities, and I'm a Auburn sports enthusiast. So, new season starts in a couple days, so looking forward to that. Go ahead, Kevin.
So yes, the title today is Going for Gold with Open Enrollment. So we will be using an Olympics metaphor throughout the presentation. I wanted to just do a quick caveat that this is more of like a performance-based sport with judging things such as diving or gymnastics. It's not really a race against a competitor or a game where you try to score more points than another team. So just think of this as achieving a personal best or impressing the judges, and your judges in this case will be your internal customers. So we go through, the things you do to prepare. You carry out, your performance, or you execute. And then kind of the metaphor slips a little bit when we start talking about integrations, but it is an important part of open enrollment. So we wanted to make sure we touched on some integration points, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So preparation. So we've got a picture here of Stephen Nedorisic. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Otherwise known as the pommel horse guy. You can see he's preparing for his event where he comes in to save the medal for the American gymnast. But you certainly know that there were months and months of time that he prepared for his routine on the pommel horse, and he was just doing this, final preparation to get in the flow. So, similar to open enrollment, there is a lengthy preparation time to make sure it's successful, and then it's just executed in a very short window. So, again, just stretching that metaphor as much as I can. One of the first things that you should become familiar with is the Workday community. There are numerous resources to assist with open enrollment. The administrator guide for benefits has a whole chapter on open enrollment. There are also some learning content that are free, like 5-minute videos, and then there are also some subscription-based courses that you can watch related to different steps in open enrollment. And then if you again kind of keep through the training preparation metaphor, it's really, the outline of your regimen is in this open enrollment checklist. And it's updated every year. It can be downloaded at this URL. And we'll talk about a lot of the content from that checklist, but not all of it. It is a very broad and deep tool that touches on all Workday deployments, and we just are going to cover sort of the 80-20 rule of the bigger topics. But it is divided into 3 tabs. There's the configuration and updates section. There's the test and process, and then there's the integrations. So you kind of see that mirrors our agenda that we talked about. One of the first things that you can do is as a good preparation step is to do a bunch of auditing of your existing setup. So there are a handful of reports listed here on the slide that goes through confirming eligibility for your workers, different ways you can slice and dice the data, making sure that you don't have any conflicts. I think the big thing is that third one, that you want to avoid having people in multiple groups, because then the system gets confused and it'll error out. And I know these screenshots are a little small, but it was a lot to fit into a PowerPoint slide here. So I hope it's coming across well on the presentation. One thing that, again, if this is your first time using Workday Open Enrollment, you will need to create the Open Enrollment event type. If it is a follow-up year for you, congratulations for making it to another year. But you want to make sure that you have all of the coverage types identified in that offering type section. So if your new plan year incorporates a new type of coverage, like pet insurance or something, that you don't see here listed on the screen, you would need to edit this event type and add that coverage type here. So again, it's just something that good to check in on. It may not require an update. And that'll kind of be the theme through some of these things that we'll talk about in the next few slides. One thing, using Workday payroll, we have period schedules defined. You want to make sure that you have one for the new calendar year. These are important in doing calculations for remaining periods for flexible spending and healthcare savings account plans. So just make sure that, again, my screenshot here is of the current year. In our demo tenant, we don't have the 2025 built yet. Then again, here are things that, again, depending on what your next plan year looks like, will depend on how thorough you need to dig into these areas. I think it is very common to have new rates for a plan year, so make sure you update those rates. While the payroll module does enforce the statutory limits for FSA, HSA, and retirement, it is good to keep those limits on the benefit side as well. So when those limits change from year to year, make sure you're updating those in the plan. Any of the plans that are using individual rates, make sure that can carry over or is going to be reset with a new calendar year. And then if you build a new plan, make sure you have the appropriate coverage targets if it's not using one that are currently in the system, any new deduction codes, and then any kind of the expanded plan details where you can add URLs or information about the specific plan. One big important note here, whenever you're making these updates, make sure you use the effective date of the new plan year. So, most of these are going to be, January 1st for a January 1st open enrollment event date. One cool thing that I really like in the Workday Benefits is the ability to map a plan. So let's say you're in this example, we're retiring the Liberty Mutual Basic Life plan, and for our new plan year, we're going to bring in a different vendor for Standard Life. We can map the coverages, by benefit group. So here again, we're just looking at the salaried U.S. employees. And, if they are enrolled in the Liberty plan, it's automatically going to put them in the Standard Life plan for the next plan year. Again, that a couple caveats with that, make sure that you have the same coverage targets or the same currencies, or otherwise those things that they won't map successfully. But again, it just saves some time from an administrative perspective, and it makes it easier for the end user. One thing that again is going to be required is to build your benefit plan year. If you don't have your plans tied to your plan year, they will not be available for workers to enroll in. So make sure that you have all of the plans that you want open enrollment to cover, and any subsequent life events throughout the next year defined here in this plan year. One option, again, this is something that you may or may not need to do, but if you're adding new plans or new coverage types, it is a good idea to have enrollment instructions. And again, there are lots of ways that Workday gives you the flexibility to add or display those instructions. You can do it by group. You can do it by specific enrollment events. In this screenshot, we just have showing, new hire and a child reaches the age limit. But in the theme of open enrollment, we could have specific instructions for open enrollment. And then you could also have them specific to different coverage types, medical, dental, long-term disability insurance, etc. And we'll see some of these later on as we look at the worker view. this is sort of the linchpin of Workday Benefits is the enrollment event rule. So when we have the starter wave coverage defined, we want to make sure that we have our open enrollment event type defined and the appropriate coverage types. And we want to make sure that that begin date for the coverage is the event date. Again, this may not be necessary to do every year, but just wanted to make sure that we cover the basis for any first-time Workday open enrollment customers. And then staying on the enrollment event rule, with the currently covered and the currently waiving tabs is where we define our evidence of insurability rules. So again, if they are unique to open enrollment, we want to make sure that we have those taken into account. Perhaps they may change from year to year. If in our example of Liberty had one EOI requirement and now Standard Life has different, this is our opportunity to update those. And again, this can be effective dated. And then we have our coverage rules, and we'll see this slide or this screenshot again in a future slide. But again, making sure that we have the specific open enrollment event type defined here. And I'll elaborate more on this in a bit. So also, in our pommel horse guy, I'm sure he practiced and practiced and practiced. Same thing goes with our open enrollment deployment. Make sure that we practice in our sandbox. Make sure that your email notifications are disabled. You don't want to set off a false alarm to employees and send them down some enrollment journey that they think they're getting benefits when it's really just a test. You want to make sure all of your tests conducted can confirm the eligibility is properly set up, that the rates are showing correctly and calculating correctly, and that any of the rules are being followed. So, and then any integration. So again, even if there aren't a lot of changes, it still makes sense to probably do an integration test. And I think Kevin will talk about this in a bit as well. As part of the preparation, again, a typical open enrollment is in the fall. That usually coincides with the Workday release calendar. So we have the 24 R2 release coming out September 21st. I did want to highlight a couple of the open enrollment related updates coming out. We'll go into a little bit more detail on the benefits messaging and some follow-up slides here. But if you have the Workday Journey SKU, they have made enhancements to allow open enrollment to be a journey and made it more robust. They've also moved the open enrollment to the benefits and pay hub for the worker. So those are again, there are many updates, but these are the ones that just really touched on open enrollment that I wanted to bring to your attention. So let's dig a little deeper into benefits messaging. There's a new task called send benefits messages. And then they've enhanced the send open enrollment reminders task. These both leverage the Workday notification designer. And it lets you send emails, SMS, and push notifications to workers that have the Workday mobile app installed on their device. Workday messaging SKU is required to send SMS. Just wanted to do that little asterisk there, but again, lots of ways to get in touch with employees related to benefits. Here's an example of building that template. It's a pretty lengthy SMS text to send. You can see in the brackets that there are some variables that we'll pull from the system. So if things are different depending on different events or organizations, you can incorporate that as part of the message. If I were to continue scrolling down, in the system, you would also define your template for the email. You can kind of see the top of it there on that screenshot. And you'd also be defining the template for the push notification. And then there's a task to send the open enrollment reminders. Again, we'll see that in a bit. And it gives you the option, you can see, to perform one last edit to the text of the message. You can see how it's being sent, and again, you have the opportunity at this point to maybe I don't want to send it to email, I changed my mind, I just want to do mobile push and SMS, and it gives you a nice count of how many recipients are going to get these messages. It does also require that the workers opt in to receive these messages. So if they have not opted in, they will not receive those messages. So we've prepared, we've made the voyage to the Olympic venue, and now it's time to perform, or in our case, we're going to execute open enrollment. And again, Youssef, Dkech, again, just a great, I think this kind of follows my my theme here of just relaxing, not getting super uptight and tense about things. We're just gonna, because we've practiced so much, we can just confidently stand there and pull the trigger, metaphorically speaking. So here's just a highlight of the process workflow. And again, we'll talk about these steps in a minute here, but the benefits partner and or administrator can initiate the open enrollment. It does send out a change benefit task to all of the workers that meet the benefit group criteria. And there we just talked about the messages for reminders to be sent. We can schedule those, or we can push those out when we feel like pushing them out. And then we have, if the employee enters and submits their elections. If they do not, which again, I know that is asking employees to meet a deadline is always a challenge with open enrollment. But there is a fail-safe from the system's perspective that if they do not actively make an election, the system's going to default based on our enrollment event rule, some actions here, and we'll show that in a minute. But assuming they follow instructions, they obey our reminder text messages or emails, and they do perform the open enrollment task, those changes then go into the system. There is a step for the benefits partner and or administrator to close open enrollment, and that step removes the change benefits tasks from everybody's Workday inbox, so they won't be able to perform it. And then the next step is to finalize the open enrollment. And again, we'll talk through these steps in more detail. So here's a screenshot of initiating the open enrollment. Again, you pick your groups. You'll have your event type for open enrollment. You can say how long you want this to be opened. I created this morning, so I'm going to run it for a little over 2 weeks till September 15th. And of course, I want my event date to be the effective date of my elections of January 1st. And then this is the task that shows up in the worker's inbox. Change benefits for open enrollment. It's pretty straightforward. And you can see, the effective date there and the time frame that they have to complete it. And then here is just, I went into one plan for this worker to elect. You just kind of demonstrate that here are the enrollment instructions that we defined in our prior step. Is here's where the rubber meets the road here. So if we have one of those employees that does not follow up on the reminder messages that we send, and they just do not complete their open enrollment task, in our enrollment event rule, we've said for open enrollment that our defaulting rules will have them just default to their current election or waive. So they're just going to, if they were in medical employee only coverage, they're just going to stay in medical employee only coverage in that plan. And of course, if we've mapped, from maybe we used Cigna Medical and now we're using Aetna Medical, because we have that mapping defined, it's going to just, continue to default them to that coverage under the new carrier. And then we have probably our best tool as an administrator or partner to manage and monitor open enrollment is our open enrollment status report. You can see on the right-hand side, we have the different statuses of the workers completing their open enrollments, and we see counts. Those numbers are in blue, meaning they're clickable. If I click on one of the figures, it will open up another box that shows me the specific employees, and I can dive in to keep drilling down from there. Then if on the bottom left, if I click the actions button, again, these is going to be dynamically show which actions are available depending on the phase of the open enrollment that you're in. So, we still are in active open enrollment. So I can close it, and then I can do my open enrollment reminders. So these are my two options. If I close it and I go back to my open enrollment status report, I will then have different actions. I'll have the actions to finalize. So closing the open enrollment, again, some things that once we do that are good, like, that target shooter, you have real-time feedback of your performance, right? You're going to see that you hit the bullseye or you were off by a couple millimeters or whatever. So with our Workday open enrollment, we want to gauge our performance. So we're going to run some reports to audit. We're going to look at the benefit changes report, which will give us details of the elections that were made. And then we can also look at kind of a higher level with an enrollment count report, which will show us, the number of employees enrolled and waived in each plan, and even by coverage target. There is the ability to make some last minute election changes in the closed status. And then it also, it's a good segue to talk about coordination of benefits. Again, this is just, I think, a very powerful feature in Workday Benefits, where, an example here is, a subsequent life event. The window was from 10/15 to 10/31. Those benefits will become effective January 1st. So the enrollment's closed, but I haven't decided to finalize it yet. So in the middle of November, a worker has a baby, and a life event or an enrollment event for birth of a child is created, and they add their child to their medical and dental coverage. That coverage on that life enrollment event only goes through the end of December, for that benefit plan year. So Workday is going to automatically reprocess the open enrollment task for that worker, so they can go in and add that child to their 2025 coverages. Again, different life events behave the same way. So again, I think it's a great option, or it's a great feature. It's not, I guess you could disable it, but I strongly advise not doing that. But it is a great feature to have in managing those things that come up, because again, life still happens, and you want to have the system be flexible enough to accommodate that. A couple other notes on the coordination of benefits. If the child happens to be born or adopted on January 1st, it won't, or basically the same day as the effective date of open enrollment. It's not going to coordinate it. It's going to combine it. There are a couple of reports that we can use to kind of keep track of how this coordination is going. The workers with multiple enrollment events and workers with enrollment events on hold. Just again, some things from an administrative perspective to stay on top of our different ongoing life. There is a rule that we can add to the business process for a change benefit for open enrollment. Is the event being reprocessed? So we could add a notification that doesn't look like deja vu from the worker's perspective. Hey, didn't I get this already? It's going to say, hey, you've had something happen that means you need to update your 2025 or next year event. So we can add that unique verbiage. So because open enrollment is going to automatically be reopened for those workers that have the subsequent enrollment events, you will have to close and finalize open enrollment multiple times. So once an open enrollment is finalized, the benefit partners can still make corrections on that open enrollment status report. There are two ways to there. I don't know if you recall from the screenshot previously, but there are different categories of finalized status. One's with changes and one's with no changes. So you'll need to find the specific status for your worker if you need to make corrections. And kind of here's a screenshot of what that would look like. So, in this example, there were none finalized with changes. They were all finalized with no changes. And you can see they come up once I click that blue 11, I get this pop-up box, and I can just then take the task to correct benefits, and then make whatever changes I need to make. So yeah, I mean, literally the finalized action is going to finalize the workers' elections. They'll see it. It does then make those elections available for integrations. So I think that's a great segue to hand it off to Kevin.
Yeah, so if you want to go to the next one after that. So right now, as you're going through and looking at the open enrollment process, it's a really good time to also look at the integrations as well. So, maybe those integrations, you haven't been automating those to your providers. Now is a good time to start doing that. If there's new and even existing plans that you haven't automated before, again, it's a good time to look at that. During the open enrollment process, you should also be looking at, well before the open enrollment process, you should be looking at automating those with providers early on. So, as you're setting up the system for test scenarios and whatnot, you'll also want to test those integrations, get those up and running, sending those files over to the providers to have them test and make sure the configuration looks good there. Um, and one of the things that you can also do is there's uh, many different Cloud Connect for benefit integrations out there that are delivered. And what you can do is start looking at the version 2 of that. Workday's consolidated the individual provider integrations into a Cloud Connect 834, and it's the version 2 integration. So you'll want to start looking at that because the other integrations, they're starting to remove support for those. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kevin. So again, if you're enabled with the 834 with the Cloud Connect for Benefits 834, you'll want to start using that. Again, these connectors are being deprecated. If other versions are being used, now is a good time to move to version 2. So in some cases, you may have version 1 or even the other connectors that were specifically created for each provider. You'll want to move to the Cloud Connect for Benefits 834 version 2 template. And so when you use the Cloud Connect for Benefits template, what it's going to do is it's going to speed up the development process because the development's really been done up until this point, and you basically just need to go in and configure it for your specific data and including the mappings and some items that we'll get to in a minute. But as you go through the process and you get set up and start looking at the 834 file, what you'll see is on the right side, your provider will be working with you to see what those unique, any type of setup or items that may be, a little different from provider to provider. And that's where you set those up on the right side. You can see the different loops that they have, and that's really specific to the 834 file. So we'll dig in a little bit more here. If you want to go to yep. So as you're setting up the 834 integration, you can see I set up, just a test one earlier. You have the option to set up the file to be sent for changes. You can send full files, active employees only or active workers only. So that information is what you'll be working with your provider to determine. Some providers only want changes, some want a full file, and it really just depends on what they're looking for specifically. So, if you need to send a full file, you'll select the enabled. If you only want changes, then you'll select the enabled there. So what this does is this determines really how the integration will be executed once it is fully configured. Okay, so the next one. All right, so when you start looking at configurations, there's a number of different setup after the services, and really one of the most important ones is configure attributes. And so the attributes are provider specific fields that they, where you would input, like account numbers and different specific items to that particular provider. The provider will show you the different specs on there, but what you can see is that there are different data elements that are identified here, and those should tie back to the specs that the provider sends to you. So that's where you'll go ahead and set up and configure those attributes based on that documentation you receive. So the next one. Yep. So also configuring mappings is another item that would need to be done from a 834 file. And so every provider, they may have their own mappings that will be done from your own Workday system to their system where they're, generating or reviewing the files that you've generated. And so any of those specific mappings, you'll need to define those here. You don't need to do any programming or anything there. You just need to define the mappings on the integration mapping options within the integration template. So there, can be a number of those different mappings that would need to be set up. And of course, those would be, identified what the provider is looking for in their documentation as well. All right, there are other items to configure. The business process, you'll want to enable and configure the business process to deliver the file. So this is where you'll put your SFTP configuration, your password ID, that kind of information. You also want to define any specific field attributes. So for example, if a vendor or a provider is looking for certain records to be sent, you'll identify that and determine which loops are going to be required to be sent to the provider. And again, that's going to be in the provider document. Field override. So this is a way to customize fields to meet provider requirements. For example, with a zip code, had a provider that wanted to only see the 5 digits as really the postal code instead of the full 9 digits with the dash and everything. That was coming over originally. So the way to get around that is to create a calculated field to adjust that, and then put that field onto a field override on the configuration of the connector template. And so all these items are ways to really not have to get into code anything, but it's really more configuration that needs to be done. The only thing that's kind of close to programming is a little bit of the calculation of the calculated fields. But everything else is, setting up attributes, setting up mapping, things like that. So again, you're going to want to test and refine over and over again the integration system configuration with the provider by sending multiple files. And so, that's, will take some time. So you want to work with the vendor, get ahead of this process, and start testing that well before open enrollment occurs. So I think that's it on my piece, Kevin. Yep.
Yeah, so pretty small group here. So if there are any questions, I don't think I saw any in the chat.
Yeah, nothing in the chat, but feel free to come off mute if you have any questions.
I just want to say you guys did a fantastic job. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, if you do find that you have further questions down the road, please keep our Coffee with Consultants offering in mind. This allows you 30 minutes of complimentary time with one of our consultants to get questions answered or even solve a pain point. So you can go to Nordic's website and sign up for that, and someone will be in touch with you, or you can reach out to me and I will get you in contact with someone as well. On the next slide, you can see that our September series continues after the Labor Day holiday on September 25th. So please register and join us for that. And again, you can always send me an email and I can get you registered as well. And then after our September series, we will have our next quarterly session in February of 2025. So look for more information regarding topics, dates, and times in the January timeframe. And then last announcement, our Nordic team will be at Workday Rising in September. So hopefully we'll see you there. Please look for our team, introduce yourself. We'd love to get a chance to talk to you in person. And that's all we have. So thank you to both Kevins. Great presentation today.
Thank you.
Thanks.